Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are excited. We have another special guest here today. But first, as always, I must say hello to Jamie. How's it going, lady?
Hello, glad to be here and glad to have our beautiful guest here today with us. We are thrilled to have Dr. Carolyn Dean here. Going to join us today for a very interesting talk about a few different topics that are very close to our heart, no pun intended. Dr.
Hmm.
Carolyn Dean is a medical doctor and a naturopath. She's the author of over 35 books, including bestseller Magnesium Miracle, which I'm pretty sure I read back a couple of years ago, and Total Body Reset for Women's Health, Total Body Reset for Men's Health, The Complete Guide to Mental Wellness, along with IBS for Dummies, Hormone Balance and Death by Modern Medicine, recently revised and released again in 2025. I'm sure that that book, could be revised every 3 to 5 years and would be totally groundbreaking with all the changes that we're seeing now, especially. Dr. Dean also hosts a YouTube radio show every Monday night where she shares her latest insights on nutrition, minerals, and natural health solutions. In 2015, Carolyn launched RNA Reset and brought her 40 years of experience into her proprietary, unique formulations that give every individual at any stage of wellness or illness the necessary building blocks for sustained health. Dr. Carolyn Dean combines science and holistic healing to help people achieve lasting health, vitality, and well being. We are thrilled you're here, Dr. Dean, and we just want to go ahead and kick off. I feel, silly asking this. It feels like too general of a question, but what led you to get into this field?
It was early on. I guess I was always curious, and I saw my dad with hay fever, sneezing, this and that. I saw um, my own sugar addiction. I saw colds and flus, and I wanted to know why. So I mean, what happened is seriously, we're going back to the 60s.
Mhm.
So I was in my early teens, I started to read nutrition information. Um, my now husband of almost 60 years, he and I ran away from home and we didn't go from Nova Scotia, Canada.
Mhm.
We ended up in Seattle and then down in Los Angeles, not for anything to do with drugs or hippies. There was a health revolution going on back then with Adele Davis and all those names that you hear about in the history. I met these people. Anyway,
Wow.
I was telling people, well, you should eat this and you should, exercise and you should do all these things. Adele Davis has the greatest bread recipe. I'm here. I just made, so no one was listening to me back home. So I went back to school. I was in biology and honors biology. I wanted to do genetics. Here's the joke of that, girls. I wanted to isolate the stupidity gene and splice it out. I mean, because anyway, so here I was in my fourth year biology, and a couple of young kids in one of my biology classes, two guys, they came up to me one day and said, "Hey, did you get your acceptance letter?" And I said, I feel pretty accepted. They had just gotten into med school. I think they were 19 years old. I was 24, 25. I said, "You jerks are going to be doctors?" I said, "That's insane." So I marched over to the Dean of Medicine's office. Thankfully, there was a med school in my University, Dalhousie University, Halifax, Nova Scotia. Who was in the office but my guidance teacher from high school, Miss Elliott. She was the assistant to the Dean of Medicine. I said, "You told me I should be an executive secretary or a nurse. What were you thinking? I want to be a doctor." So I just happened to have all the prerequisites and I got into med school in the next semester. So I just hit the ground running because I had all these thoughts. I mean, I almost didn't get in because the third year students, when they interviewed me, they said, "Oh, she's too Pollyanna. She thinks she can help people." So that was on the sign up sheet. So the dean of students, he had me, and I'd already had an interview with him, and we got along just fine. And he said, "This is so silly. So he nulled their interview and I got in. Day two of our first week of classes, a clinician comes in to set us up and tell us what it's going to be like for us. His second slide was a nude female slide for the mostly male class.
Mm.
And his third and fourth slide, there were 100 students. The first high number of females, there were 30 of us in a class of 100. So what did I do? I had already befriended a biochemistry teacher in the med school. I went and got a Playgirl magazine with nude male pictures. I got him to make slides, put them in the slide box for the next lecture of this guy 2 days later.
Hilarious.
Nude male, first slide, nude male, second slide. He grabbed his briefcase, ran out of the room. We never saw him again.
Wow.
Overnight, every nude female picture that was just in all the labs, all through the med school, as I heard later on, it just changed the whole university. That one act, and that's what I've always done is take an action.
Mhm.
Love that.
Very good. Very good.
Fun.
Excellent. That's a great story.
Mhm.
It's so interesting. You mentioned when you were just telling that story that you had fought with sugar addiction yourself in
Oh,
your lifetime. I would love
absolutely.
to hear a little bit more about that and wondering, you are in this over 50 years, and I was curious about what led you to writing your book just now, Exposing Sugar Toxicity. But can you start with what your own background is with sugar addiction and lead us into what led you to write the book now in your career?
Sure. Yes, well, sugar is awesome. And we just happen to have in my family a big box freezer in the basement, and I could sneak down and get a pint or a quart of ice cream every night, pour
Hmm.
it into a big bowl with a can of pears or peaches in a sugar syrup, and that was my reward because I would study all night and I was a good student. I love to learn, and that's what's my reward. And I guess because I didn't get acne, it didn't have that effect on me. I just kept doing it. But I got yeast overgrowth. I got ear
Okay.
infections. I got throat infections. So I had the antibiotics. So that led me to just having a lot of infections and being run down, but having high energy at the same time. I guess the sugar just drove that. And I guess when my husband and I, when we went out to California, we just hitchhiked around the country. I learned in the nutritional field that yeah, you're not supposed to eat all that sugar. So I got off that, but I was already struck by too much sugar, getting antibiotics for being sick,
Mm.
mercury dental fillings, that's what everybody got back then, and then the birth control pill. So I had yeast overgrowth, which then drives, to my mind, sugar addiction.
Mm.
So I kept craving the sugar to feed the yeast, and then, I'd still get I started my first week of my internship up in Mount Sinai Hospital up in Toronto, Canada, with a strep infection that just nailed me. I was just wandering around the ER on my first rotation. They said, "You got to go home." So I was always run down, always sick until, gosh, it wasn't until I met up with Dr. William Crook. He
Mm.
wrote a book called The Yeast Connection, and I got very involved with a yeast organization and giving lectures. So then I was on a 10-year fasting sugar, gluten, and dairy. And it didn't 100, it maybe helped me 75%, but I still had problems. So I had problems until I discovered I had really bad magnesium deficiency. And
Mm.
that came when I was in New York, and uh, I wrote a little book called When You Can't Reach the Doctor, and that got known by some of the TV shows in Manhattan. So I did a lot of morning TV. I was on The View a lot.
Mm.
I did The View until they started doing direct to consumer drug advertising. And you can
Yes.
imagine why they pulled me off.
Mm.
So I went to Random House because I was working or studying with a Chinese medicine doctor, and I wanted to write a Chinese medicine diet book. And they thought, oh, we just signed one on. How about writing a book about magnesium? One of the editors there, she had just, I guess, cured her migraines with magnesium, so she was totally intrigued. So I said, "Mm, yeah, okay. I mean, you don't say no to an offer like that." But
Mm.
I thought, how can I write a 300-page book on one mineral? And it took me, thankfully, the internet was up and running then, so I was able to research. And it didn't take me long to realize that my sort of headaches and my kind of chokiness and heart palpitations, leg cramps, insomnia, all related to magnesium deficiency. But then when I went to the health food store to get a magnesium with more than 50 milligrams, which was in my multiple, I started
Mhm.
taking 100, 200 milligrams, and I got a laxative effect immediately. So there I was, severely magnesium deficient, couldn't take the
And couldn't take it.
cure. Yeah. So after I published the Magnesium Miracle book, I went on a search for someone who would make a non-laxative magnesium. Took me 10 years. Finally, none of the companies were interested. They're selling their
That's
magnesium just
crazy.
fine. Mm.
That's crazy. And now look how many there are out there now, and that,
Oh,
all the things we know probably because of the some of the early work you did, right? All the things we know about the different types of magnesium and what they're used for, and
right.
wow,
And then that's a great point, Paige, because what happened, Jamie, sorry, what happens is with these magnesium compounds, they're too big to get into a cell. A magnesium
Mm.
compound, a citrate, chloride, gluconate, glycinate, too big. So what a compound has to do in a liquid, and this would be in the blood, it has to disassociate into two parts, the
Mhm.
magnesium ion part and the other, the chloride part. And then in that infinitesimal e- fraction of a second, it has to enter a cell
Mhm.
because magnesium is very active and it'll bind right back up to something.
Got it.
So what my chemist has been able to do is stabilize the ion of magnesium to make it just stand there, alert and ready to just jump into cells. It is a miracle. It is revolutionary. I've done university research on it, how it when you shine a laser through the our liquid magnesium, it doesn't bounce off any substance because it's at the picometer size ionic level. But I don't have the $10 million to spend on a marketing campaign. And I don't know if I want to, because as soon as the FDA finds out that you're
Should
doing
already.
some good stuff, they
Should.
came down on a lot of us during
Yes,
the
they did.
COVID years because they
Mhm.
didn't want people to be taking their vitamin D and their vitamin C and their magnesium and their omegas and the things that would help their immune system. So where are we at?
Yeah, I was just curious about what led you after all of this background and history, since our audience are those that are recovering from the effects of ultra processed food, and usually sugar is a big factor in most of the people that are struggling. What kind of inspired you after all these many books that you've written to write exposing sugar toxicity at this point in your career?
When I was in my practice, back in the late 80s, I started to write a book on sugar because I saw the problems that I'd had in my childhood eating so much and by that time I had done my naturopathic training after my medical training, and I read The Yeast Connection by Dr. Crook. I was on a national TV show with Dr. Crook, a 90-minute call-in TV show in Ontario,
Wow.
actually. And people say it was because it was a very cold night. Maybe there was a storm in the winter in Canada, but 60, what's it, 60, 80,000 people called into that show
Ah.
to hear,
Um,
what we were saying. Dr. Cook was there in person. I was there, and we talked about yeast and sugar. So I started to write that book probably after that show, and what happened with that book, I was on the Deanie Petty show, and it was a Christmas show, and I was spooning out, oh, there are 10 teaspoons of sugar in a can of soda. There
Mm-hmm.
are 15, 20 teaspoons of sugar in a milkshake. Now, it was a Christmas show, so there were a lot of kids in the audience, so they were showing the kids, and before long, I mean, within the month, a sugar lobby group complained to my licensing board that I was saying untrue, unverifiable things about sugar.
a lot of money in the lobbies.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, awesome power. So they wrote, a letter, an admonishment to me for saying bad things about sugar and promoting my book. Now, I hadn't even finished the book. I was just saying I'm writing a book on sugar. And then they
Funny.
sent a plant into my office to find something on me to complain about. And
Wow.
this young man came with his mother. They were late for their appointment. I shouldn't have even taken them, but they came in, and he had some sort of food allergy. He was demanding me to give him a homeopathic remedy, and it just didn't feel right. And I said, no, let's do some testing. And
Mhm.
then they wrote a letter to the licensing board saying she refused to give us a homeopathic remedy. I mean, were just making it up back in the day.
And who knows if the board sent them? Who knows?
Who
Who
knows?
knows? Secret shopper,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. So that was another strike. And anyway, it's the sugar lobby back then as well was attacking the studies that were showing that sugar is bad for heart disease.
Hmm.
And in order to stop all that, they started promoting the cholesterol theory that no, no, it's saturated fat, it's meat, it's butter. And back in the day, you guys may be too young to
Yeah.
remember, they
No.
made us eat margarine.
Oh, I
So
remember.
uh, so we had this white, gooey, white, fatty
Chemical.
substance, and we would get little red buttons of dye to stir into it to make it look like butter. It was horrible margarine, trans fats, and what's killing more people than butter ever would. So
Right.
the sugar lobby is huge. So here I am trying to write a book, get attacked. I put that book away, and it wasn't until a couple of years, maybe a year or so ago, that one of the people on my team said, do you want to drag up your sugar book because there's so much out there about it now, the
Yeah.
toxicity of sugar.
Yeah.
So I've been at this sugar and attacked by the sugar lobby for a long time. I know it's very toxic, but I still love sugar.
But you have gotten off of it now, or I know you said you struggled with sugar addiction. Did you get off, or where are you in that?
Right. So, like I said, I spent 10 years trying to not trying to, avoiding sugar, wheat, and dairy because I was
Mm-hmm.
working on it from the yeast overgrowth end of things.
I see.
Coated tongue, itchy ears, gas and bloating,
Mm-hmm.
IBS type symptoms, all that is the yeast overgrowth part of sugar addiction. We'll
Mhm.
say, oh, sugar causes these things. Well, maybe sugar is feeding the yeast that is causing these things. So I was looking more at the root of the problem. And so what happened there was it wasn't until I had my company and I was still fighting these yeast symptoms and still wanting to eat sugar and eating sugar that I created my own products and gentle antifungal and using it with picometer silver. So
Mm.
with these two things, I was able to take care of the yeast overgrowth part. You can't kill off all the yeast, so you have to be very gentle about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I work with those things, And then what I do in my diet is I'll just have a couple of pieces of fruit a day, or I'll make listen to this recipe. It's coconut cream, a half a banana, a big ripe avocado, almost an ounce of cacao powder, chocolate powder, and a half a teaspoon of vanilla. And you blend that up and it makes a chocolate pudding.
Ah,
Yeah. And then I'll put in some, this is where I go off the deep end. I'll put like a cup of organic frozen cherries in it and
oh,
let them.
nice.
So, what with addiction, we say, okay, you can never have sugar again. But I guess I got to the point. I mean, I'm 76, and I said, am I going to spend the rest of my life beating myself up because I don't allow myself any amount of sweet? But I never have a bag of sugar in my house. I don't have any sugar substitutes. I don't make things with sugar. Stevia, I do use in my products. Our protein powder has stevia in it, for example. I will drink Zevia. It's a soda
Hmm.
that's sweetened with stevia. I'll
Hmm.
put that in with my mineral waters because my minerals are strong. But I guess I'm not focused enough to totally avoid it, sugar, for the rest of my life. And I don't know what you ladies think about that. I'd like to know that.
I think that sounds like living to me. And
Mm.
since at 76, you look like you're 36, I'd say you're
Oh,
probably doing something right.
uh,
Um, One of the things that you mentioned earlier, you were talking about COVID, and you were talking a little bit about some of the things that came out of the learnings and some of the, let's say, revisionist history in the medical field that came out of COVID as well.
yeah,
You mentioned how people had to sort of go underground to find solutions that really worked. And you're mentioning one. I'm in healthcare, and I have many practitioner and clinical friends, and I would just all of us would go to them during the height of the pandemic and say, hey, what do we do, or what do we do to shore up our immune system, or hey, we're seeing the symptoms, what do we do? And they'd be like, colloidal silver, oil of oregano every
mm,
4 hours, and then make sure you're taking your BDC,
yeah,
um, and double your dose every day. And every time it would knock it out.
yeah,
In those of us who had an immune system that was functioning, okay, right? So I just thought it was so interesting that there were so many, you know, um, I would say, things that couldn't be taught. And then the clinician, when they would tell you that, and they would say, "But you didn't hear this from me."
mm,
And
I
I
know.
I don't judge them because they didn't want to jeopardize their paycheck in the middle of a pandemic when people were losing jobs to a
Yeah,
hundred different reasons.
yeah,
And I understood that, but it was like, why, and why wouldn't you talk about this? And then it reminds me now of so many people I hear that are battling life-threatening illnesses, and chronic illnesses, including cancers. And there are wonderful naturopathic solutions and solutions that are off of the medical and chemical field, that or used in different ways, right? And now they're being used to battle cancer. And practitioners, if they're asked about these alternative treatments, will say, "You didn't hear it from me," or "I can't recommend that," or "That doesn't work," because
mm,
big medicine has told them not to talk about it. And I've heard more than once of a stage 3 or 4 cancer patient saying, "Can you please tell me about some of these alternative treatments I've been reading about? Can you please tell me if they'll work for me?" The doctor will say, "Nope, won't work for you, and I don't want to talk about it." They'll end the appointment, patient going to their car, doctor will run out to the parking lot and say, "I can't talk about it inside, but I can talk about it here." And they'll give them an address and they'll go
wow.
talk. It's like, and then
Uh-huh.
and then they'll connect them with the alternative treatments
Hmm.
based on what, and many times these patients are seeing amazing results.
Yeah.
But why can't that doctor talk about it? And I know the answer to this question, but I don't think a lot of people do.
No, it's all financial. But here's something where I'll tie in sugar and vitamin C and how vitamin C can be high dose intravenous vitamin C can be used for cancers and for horrible infections. I mean, COVID for Pete's sakes.
Yes.
So this is, and I'm sure you've heard this, you know this, but maybe the audience hasn't. Glucose and ascorbic acid, vitamin C, are very similar molecules.
Wow.
Humans don't make vitamin C. Uh, Primates, apes, gorillas, and humans and guinea pigs don't make vitamin C. Everybody else does in the animal kingdom. Tons of vitamin C, and they make it from
Interesting.
glucose. Now, my very bad joke is that when Eve ate the apple, God said, okay, you're stuck with apples now. No more
Right.
vitamin
Well,
C
I
for
was
you.
going to ask you, did we ever make vitamin C? Was this an evolutionary thing that sort of, eked out over evolution? Like, did we ever make vitamin C?
Well, that's why I say,
Yeah,
that's what happened
easily
in the Garden of Eden,
in the garden. Okay.
Eden, because it's obvious that we have glucose and we need vitamin C and we should be able to make it. There's three enzymes that work on it, and one of them is just gone. So, what happens when um, glucose wants to get into a cell and vitamin C wants to get into the cell? They compete for the same transport system, which is insulin.
Mm,
So when you're eating all this sugar, you are bumping off the possibility of vitamin C getting into your cells.
What about a piece
interesting.
of fruit that has vitamin C? What does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. So
Does it get
there's
into the cell?
Yeah, it's a battle. And the
Interesting.
main thing is that when you're downing your soda,
Oh,
you are depressing your vitamin C getting into your cells to help deal with that sugar overload. I've always known that vitamin C was the antidote to a high sugar diet. When we had foster kids and when we'd have our parties, we'd have the sugar table and then we'd have the vitamin C table as the antidote. The kids grew up with that. So this is horrifying to know that vitamin C is so essential for us. Sugar will antidote it, and also that the powers that be say that we only need 90 milligrams of vitamin C, which keeps us from having scurvy. Okay,
yeah.
but
Table stakes.
you go back to Linus Pauling, what did he tell us? He said for our, size and whatever compared to other animals, we probably need 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C. And then what did he say? They've bubbled him off into the, oh yeah, vitamin C for the common cold, but they ignored totally his heart research, which was vitamin C makes collagen. Collagen makes artery and capillary walls with the collagen connective tissue. If
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
have weak collagen, you'll get all the nicks and cracks and tears, tiny, tiny, in your arteries, your coronary arteries, anywhere in the body. And what happens with that tear? Cholesterol comes along as a band-aid. Cholesterol is not the problem. The
No.
first problem is collagen breakdown. You get your tear, you get your cholesterol on top of the tear, and then here comes magnesium and calcium. If you don't have enough magnesium in your body to neutralize calcium and send it into the bones, calcium builds up and deposits on that cholesterol, and there's your atherosclerotic plaque. And that's the vitamin part of the vitamin C theory of heart disease. The other part is, they've been going on for years about cholesterol. And as I said, it came about because the sugar industry said, well, they can't look at sugar, make them look at fat. And that distracted everybody. And
Mhm.
then the statin drugs distracted everybody because it suppresses your cholesterol. It stops an enzyme called HMG CoA reductase. But you know what else modifies HMG or HMC? CoA reductase is magnesium. Magnesium is a
Mm.
natural statin in that it balances cholesterol. You need more, okay, we'll pull this magnesium away. You need less, okay, we'll make cholesterol mess with that enzyme.
And
So,
look at the outcomes that they're connecting these statin drugs now with dementia and Alzheimer's.
oh yeah. So,
Really?
Yeah.
and that information about statins are bad and maybe LDL cholesterol isn't so bad, and they're really starting to look at it. But do you know what they did? A whole other part of lipidology, because it's a huge industry. They came up with, oh, it's really lipoprotein little a. Lipoprotein A, you'll see it everywhere now. They started pushing it like nothing else because they got 5 drugs in the pipeline for lipoprotein A. You know what happens with animals that don't make their own vitamin C? They increase their lipoprotein A. In animals that make lots of vitamin C, no lipoprotein A.
Why would they
And
give us more?
that and that is because lipoprotein A and vitamin C both have the capacity for wound healing. They will heal up these little tears and whatnot naturally. And so they're like antagonists.
Mhm.
If one is high, the other is low, etc. So if you've got lipoprotein A, which I probably have because I have familial hypercholesterolemia and all that, and I just ignore the statins. So
Mhm.
I'm on high dose vitamin C for my cholesterol and probably my lipoprotein A, which is what everybody should be on, but we'll
Yeah.
never hear about it. I'm writing this vitamin C book. I don't know who's going to read it. Maybe I have over 100,000 customers in my database. They'll
Mhm.
hear about it, but it's
Let me
not.
ask you a quick question about
Yeah.
that because you're talking about absorption, and I just want to follow up on this. I'm on your RNA Reset
Oh,
website,
yeah.
and your products here. Tell me, we've heard, Paige and I have talked to other doctors who have talked about the importance of these minerals that you're talking about as well. But talk to me about methylation, right? I know that's something that I struggle with. I have that awesome MTHFR gene.
Yeah.
And I also have chronic Epstein-Barr. So it's something for me that's I'm very, cognizant of how my body absorbs or doesn't absorb what I need.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about how that works for you with what you found with your patients.
Right. So we've known about the methylation problem forever. So when I created my B vitamin product called Realign, I'm not going to be mentioning the names of my products to do with disease because the FDA will, slap my wrist again. But um, I made the 8 components of the B vitamins. 4 of them are methylated and 4 of them are food based, and you
Mm,
have to have low dose food based Bs that the body will accept.
right.
When you look at all the HMFR methylation, I don't call them a gene defect, I call them a gene variation. We cannot have in our mind that we've got a genetic problem that's unsolvable. Everything
Thank
is
you.
solvable. So
Thank you.
with the whole methylation business, which is crucial, methylation is the bomb. And with these low dose B vitamins, then the body can do its processing up to and including DNA and RNA formation. But if you have a synthetic, and I don't know all the details of what a normal bee, natural bee looks like compared to synthetic, but I'm told it's got to do with their rotational spin. You've got a levo and a dextro, or dextro and levo, right spinning and left spinning. So they're a different molecule. And when a B vitamin goes at a receptor site, if it's not the natural form, then it won't activate the receptor, it won't go into the cell. But if you keep increasing the dosage and hammering it, it'll finally go in. And that is exactly what I observed in all my years. I mean, I was around before we had a supplement industry.
Mm.
The first supplements were food-based, natural. They just spun out the carrots and made the beta carotene, whatever they did. And then it got more and more synthetic and made it more, well, it made it cheaper, but they were
Hmm.
made from coal tar derivatives, probably the different rotational spins, but definitely a different vibration. So if you look at vibrational medicine and you think, oh, that's kind of woo-woo. I never really got involved with the woo-woo, but I would read all these books and think, okay, there's some sense there. And if you look at the vibration of these nutrients, they are different. There's something called radionics. They
Okay.
measure the radio frequency, I suppose you could say, but they measure the vibration of all the tissues in the body. They're all different. They measure the vibration of supplements, and they know that a synthetic is different from a natural. So anyway,
Yeah. Wow.
with the whole MTHFR business, it has to be a natural bee, and no one is sort of thinking in that direction because it got to be medicalized, and they just think, oh, the more is the better.
Mm.
When the allopathic medicine got involved with vitamin D, because all the studies show how important it is, they decided, oh, well, let's give 50,000 units of vitamin D2, which is synthetic, and then we'll really help people. Well, no, it's synthetic, it's too high, and what happens with D is it requires magnesium in order to activate it. So as soon as you take this
Wow.
high dose of B, you use up all your magnesium. People would start twitching and having heart palpitations again.
Yes.
I'd get these
Yeah.
calls, and
Yeah.
it was oh, what did you do new? Oh, I took this 50,000 units of vitamin
One
D.
of our members talked to us about that. She had exactly, she was vegan. She was recommended to take a very high dose of
Mhm.
D, and she had all kinds of issues. And she's like, I don't understand. I was told this would work. And
Yep. Magnesium, boom. So with your B vitamins, it's so important. And why did that happen? Part of the research into the MTHFR, there are areas in that whole methylation complex that require magnesium. So is magnesium deficiency playing a part in how much we're seeing this? See, all the way genes work, and as I said, I was in genetics, and it's not that I learned a whole lot, but I had a feeling for it. And when epigenetics came along, which is the periphery of genetics, they
yep,
started saying, oh, look, this B vitamin is necessary to make this gene
yep.
activated or not.
Turn
Th-
this on or off, right?
Yeah, yeah. And magnesium and the B vitamins are the big modifiers of genetic information. Uh, the whole genetic business. Again, I was involved in this because I was in biology genetics. They started on the human genome project, and they wanted to find at least 100,000 genes that they could snip and pull out. Oh, this gene causes this disease. Let's get rid of it. At the end of the project, took, probably billions of dollars and dozens of years, they found 23,000 human genes. 23,000, a quarter of what they thought. And they saw that genes had to work together, and they couldn't figure it out. And that's why they dumped the Human Genome Project and threw it out to 23andMe and said, "Well, you can play with
Is
this." And
that
now
why that
they're in
happened?
trouble. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Very
So
interesting.
because what they wanted to do, and I'll say it again, they wanted to find a disease and snip out the gene, and they can't do that. They've never been able to do that. None of these gene snipping experiments have ever worked. Everybody's always died. I mean, they'll probably get to the point where it'll work, but the Genome Project went into the public domain, and then you've got all these people getting their sending in their blood, getting their genome tested. Someone else owns your blood. I never got mine tested. I did not want someone owning my blood. And then they would print out, oh, these are the top gene variations, gene defects that you have. And then it would just drive people crazy because it's like they never gave people a reason to think that they could overcome these problems. It caused so many problems with people just being scared to death. Well, I've got this problem. I guess there's nothing I can do about it. It was horrible.
Mm.
Well, as we wrap up here, I just want to make sure to advertise your book again, Exposing Sugar Toxicity. And since most people listening are like me, where sugar is such a powerful drug in my system that I have this reaction where once I have it, I can't stop. So
Mhm.
I have not evolved yet to where you and Jamie are. It's still a very kryptonite for me and actually to most of our listeners. Is there one thing you would want our listeners to know that you reveal in the book about dealing with the effects of ultra processed food or specifically sugar that would help them more than anything else?
Right. Okay. What's important there, I think, is when we eat food, we eat it for pleasure. Okay, fine. And we've been commercialized about sugar for every holiday and everything. You got to eat sugar. So
Mm-hmm.
there is that. But we eat food for nutrients. And that was the whole thing about the ultra processed food study. There was one study that was done, and they found in a group that ate ultra processed food compared to a group that just eat ordinary horrible food anyway. The ultra processed food group were eating 500 more calories than the other group.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, oh, I wonder, we have no idea what that is. We'll have to keep studying. Well, what it is people kept eating the food to get more nutrients, and they just
Mm-hmm.
couldn't get enough nutrients. They were just getting calories.
Overfed, undernourished, right?
So what I find within my world, with my small handful of nutrients, I'm working with A, B, C, D, E, and the minerals, and they're all sort of combined in about half a dozen different products. If you have your basic building blocks, the food-based organic vitamins and the picometer stabilized mineral ions, you lose your cravings because you've got your nutrients. You're satisfied. We have
Interesting.
people who say, well, I don't crave coffee anymore. I don't crave cigarettes. I don't crave alcohol because all these substances are trying to give you a lift. Your coffee is trying to give you energy in the morning. Well, you take magnesium for energy. I didn't say this, but magnesium is necessary for 80% of known metabolic reactions. And about the
Mhm.
brain, in our brain, we have 86 trillion neurons, and each neuron has 2 million mitochondria. And mitochondrial talk is huge right now. In the
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
mitochondria, there are, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of Krebs cycles that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And the Krebs cycle makes your ATP energy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, ATP is really ATP-MG for magnesium. You cannot have an energy molecule without magnesium being attached. So for the 2 million mitochondria and the thousands of Krebs cycle in each neuron, we need a lot of magnesium. And I think magnesium deficiency is probably a reason for all the dementia and Alzheimer's that we're seeing right now.
Wow.
So you recommend people start with the magnesium first as you're trying to get off sugar.
I do. It's easy. You'll take it. Maybe we'll have people who'll take it for insomnia and they say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was going to help my back pain or my headaches or so it starts doing a lot of things, but there are 8 mechanisms at work with magnesium on your pancreas and how it
Mhm.
reacts with your diet and your sugar and your cells and your insulin. So yeah, the magnesium is really our gateway drug.
Just a quick
Right.
question on the follow-up on pages. I noticed that your Remag formulas only use that one specific kind of magnesium. We
Oh
had a
yeah.
magnesium doctor on, oh gosh, Paige, what was it, a couple months ago, maybe?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
she talked about the different kinds of magnesium. It was very interesting conversation too. But she talked about the different formulations, like you talked about glycinate, was it glucate,
Yeah.
um, chelate, and citrate. So why does, in your formulations, it seems like you have just that one magnesium? What is there a reason to take different kinds?
Yeah, it's all about the magnesium. You
Oh,
don't want the chloride. You don't really want
right.
the others. I mean, maybe they'll make a marketing uh, claim that, oh, all these other things are going to help all these. No, if you are magnesium deficient, you want magnesium.
Magnesium. Got it.
So what my chemist did was stabilize the magnesium, so that's what you get.
So it gets in
And
the
you
cell.
get straight magnesium that's fully absorbed. It's not going to be laxative on a person. So it's all about the marketing. I mean, I think I saw a magnesium product that said it had 12 different magnesiums. Well, your body's got to deal with all that. It's got to disassociate the magnesium from all
Right.
those other ingredients to allow the magnesium into the cells. And if you look in my first magnesium book, The Magnesium Miracle,
Mm.
I have a list of all the magnesium compounds. In a 500 milligram compound, you may get 50 to 75 milligrams of magnesium.
Wow.
50 to 75.
Not
Magnesium
enough.
L-threonate was the worst of them in the marketing. On the front of the label of magnesium L-threonate, it'll say 2,000 milligrams. And you'll think, wow, I'm getting a lot of magnesium. You
You're
turn
not.
it over and it says, well, actually, in 3 capsules, you'll get 144 milligrams. So for
Bait and switch.
me, when I finally got my own Remag product and I was taking it for my heart palpitations, I needed 1,200 milligrams. So I would have had to take what 30, 25, 30
Right.
capsules, and that would be total laxative. I would just waste away from being able to.
Interesting.
So
Now
it's
on,
not the compound. We
yeah.
just want the magnesium. Give us
When
magnesium.
when folks listen, I know you have your YouTube and we have got that in our show notes and you're all over social media, which is wonderful. When folks work with your company, it looks like you help them figure out a specific way to make sure that they're getting the formulation they need or that the products that they need is it looks like you've got some packages that are geared toward women, men, athletes, etc. But have you found that there's a lot of variation?
No,
Maybe?
everybody needs everything. I guess it's part of marketing to focus on bundles so that we can give people discounts. But what I've done is I've kept a robust customer service team of humans. So you can actually phone a human and find, get answers. But like you say, I have a lot of information, a lot of books, a lot of webinars, podcasts, and I kind of say the same thing over and over again. But then with customer service, they'll help people. One interesting thing that happens with taking Remag for 2 or 3 months, some people will start to feel yeast symptoms coming up, the coated tongue, some gas and bloating. And what that seems to be is the immune system is kind of kicking in and getting rid of this excess yeast. So then we're all excited.
Um,
Oh, that's not a downturn. Your body's actually working hard now to get rid of the yeast, and then we put
no,
them on our yeast protocol.
Hmm,
fascinating.
Yeah.
interesting. Do you have anything else that you want to end with, Jamie, before we wrap up?
Just thank you, Dr. Dean, for your time. And it sounds like, obviously you're a trailblazer and you really did flip the paradigm on its head in so many ways. And we've got all the links for where people can find you. And I think that, you've given, all of our listeners, wherever they are in their recovery journey, some good content to understand that, what Paige and I work on is making sure that listeners and members of our community, there's no shame in their, what might be, sort of put in context as an addiction to certain foods, especially sugar, because our bodies are reacting exactly the way they were designed to react to hyperpalatable, overstimulating, hypercaloric foods.
Yeah.
They're doing our bodies and brains are doing exactly what they were designed to do. So there's nothing wrong with us.
Mm.
It's more understanding, okay, if I've taken these foods out of my life and I still have these major cravings, what are my options here? What options do I have? Where might I be deficient? And I think you've talked a lot about that today, Dr. Dean, and that's something I know I found helpful, I think page 2, and I think our listeners will as well.
Mm.
So thank you for your information.
Yeah.
Thank
Love
you,
it.
ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really important, and it's really courageous for people to come out and say, "Look, this is me." We're all sort of explaining. It's like AA, it's Sugarholics Anonymous.
Yeah, yes.
You have to admit the problem and then find solutions, and there
Mhm.
are solutions. And don't get dehydrated. Put sea salt in your drinking water. That's my last tip.
Just a pinch, right? Just a pinch?
Well, okay, take your body weight in pounds,
Mhm,
divide that in half,
mhm.
drink that many ounces of water a day,
Yeah,
and in
right.
each liter, put a quarter teaspoon of a colorful sea salt.
All right. Very helpful.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Dean.
Wonderful. And if
Oh,
you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U. And if you're looking for our book, Real Food Recovery, If Food Isn't the Answer, What's the Question? You can find us on Amazon there. Thanks so much, guys. See you next time. Bye-bye.
I usually get hearts, but maybe not.
Yeah,
You know,
Oh,
sometimes they do
with the
pop
Zoom,
up.
I don't know if we have that set up on this one. Here, I'll do a heart.
well,
I'll do a
hearts to
heart.
you.
There you
Aloha.
go.
Oh, there you go. Thank
Oh,
you, Jamie. Yeah, aloha.
aloha.
Thank you.